Hello everybody. Thank you for still being here. It's the most difficult period of time in the symposium and everyone is showing great fortitude. I'm very impressed. What I want to talk about is different ways of working with children to highlight, emphasise the connection that we all have with the natural world, different ways of being with it, different ways of knowing. And I'm linking this to the sustainability curriculum, such as it is in the new national curriculum, and it's put forward as a cross-curricular priority. So the key ideas are listed here. So actions to improve sustainability are both individual and collective endeavours shared across local, global communities. They necessitate a renewed and balanced approach to the way humans interact with each other and the environment. And hopefully what I'm presenting here today will be another way of approaching that. They do have a system of organising ideas broken up into systems, worldviews and futures, and some of those will be reflected here. It's not possible to reflect all of them in a short presentation. There's been a lot of talk about post-human and new human and relational perspectives, and to me what they all say is the world is alive. It's not an object that we can utilise and use up in the way that we have been as a human species. So what I'm seeking to do in this presentation is to respond to and frame my understandings of the human and other human worlds. In my doctoral research, what originally began as an anthropocentric view of connection, being born of our own needs as humans through theories of biophilia, eco-psychology, can now, I feel, through my engagement with these emerging theories, be expanded to look at what it is that nature does to us. And in some ways I've been doing that, but not really been aware of it. So I'm now being able to put some theoretical structures to what I have been doing and what I continue to do with my pre-service students. So this presentation will include place and time. I'll show you very briefly a wonderful building that I worked in that represents biophilic design and how these things reflected the environment. So I'll look at a little bit about what we did inside that building and also include pedagogies for interacting and understanding and representing the world through arts-based pedagogies in a manner that centres our relationship with the natural world as a key part of the educational curriculum. Now the reason I have that picture there is because for me, one of the most magical moments in nature is when we have this meeting of states. So the water crashing into spray and mingling with the air is two states merging together, and I will come back to that throughout. This is the kindergarten I used to teach in, and I have a bigger photo coming. But what I wanted to do was to share with you the morning verse that we used to speak when we came in together. And I have to stand aside because I did this for so many years that I can't not move my hands, my arms. It comes with it. And what I'm doing is using a very basic form of eurythmy. Not sure I can do this with a mic. In the morning light, we stand upright, the strength in our limbs renewed. As we greet the day, we are happy and gay and find pleasure and wonder in all that we do. We seek knowledge and truth with an active mind. Each new step, the light we will find. Each day, each step brings something new in all that we think, feel, and do. That was how we started our day in the kindergarten. And my grandson, who, along with his mum, lived with me. He goes to a Steiner school, and some of this comes from my experience in Steiner education, of course, even though I'm not an anthroposophist. I'm not pushing a particular barrow here. He wanted me to include his afternoon verse, which is also very beautiful. So this comes from Tawhai. Soon the sun will pass on by, and the moonlit night will be my guide. Through colours of dusk and evening hue, all I have learned and all I have done, each word I have spoken, each song I have sung, within me now rests like a sleeping seed, waiting for a time to grow and be, to bear its fruit for the world to see. So this is what these children go home with every day. What a wonderful affirmation about the power of learning and the value of learning. This kindergarten building is quite remarkable. It's biophilic design, although I didn't know that term at the time. It encompasses a logarithmic spiral on the outside, where the spiral continues to get wider. That's the large section of roof coming around towards us, you can see, and also an Archimedean spiral in the middle. They are moving in opposite directions and they are moving upwards together. So in reality what they represent on a very macro scale is the DNA helix. And when we think about the relevance that has to the individual child, the breaking down, if you like, or the disintegration, to use Sue's term from the other day, of the individual and the relationship that we then have on a molecular level to the natural world, it's a new way to think about it. Within this building, and of course around it and outside when we spent time in the outdoors, we engaged in place stories, and I didn't know they were place stories at the time, but they certainly were. Stories about our environment formed the basis of our program. Everything we did was based on what we could see, feel, hear, smell, touch in our local environment. The children would come in with various observations that would gradually build. Some would fade away and others would take root and become very powerful stories. The stories really were about the need to belong and the need to love. Interestingly, I once heard Sandra Cheeseman speak. Sandra was one of the consortia of people, one of the people in the consortium who put together the early years learning framework for early childhood in Australia. And she said that belonging had to come first. The three key ideas in that framework are belonging, being and becoming. And belonging had to come first. She said there was much debate over this, but in the end they decided that we all have to belong first, or we can't be, and we certainly can't become. So we have to belong first, and play stories help us to belong. But I also ask a few questions here. What does the environment do to our stories? Well, it certainly created our stories, all of them. What do our stories do to the environment? How does our narration of the environment change the way we live? And I think the way we narrate our environment reflects and affects our relationship with it. Now I know Ben didn't get to Agnya chakra earlier, but it's this wonderful eyebrow centre chakra that has the two halves that are constantly in movement, and to some extent that's how I see our engagement with the environment. We are moving through it, we are changing it as it is changing us constantly. So looking at the lens of post-human or the other than human worlds, the way we narrate our environment reflects and affects our relationships with it. And of course, drawing from Margaret's wonderful book, Water in a Dry Land, the Indigenous storying that includes language, movement, music, visual art mapping, or the postmodern emergence, as she calls it, was very much the way in which we worked in our kindergarten and the way in which I worked with the children who were part of my PhD program. This is a child who had heard the story that was told in the preschool. We had set up a play setting with a range of natural materials and pieces of cloth. The blue is the river, the cloth around the outside of the edges of the river. He took his soft toys and went and lay down in the river. I worked in 4 different preschools with my PhD research. This occurred in 3 of them. It was extraordinary. So there was something about those stories that were all about their local area, flora and fauna in their area, that touched those children to the point where they drew comfort from it, and they represented that by lying down in this setting. Karen Son and I recently did some research with children at Rouse Hill, and we were asking them about their favourite play spaces, what makes a perfect play space. And this little girl took the photograph of her cubby, but she was very much claiming this space by indicating the things that she needed and highlighting the secret places that only she knew about within this space. She had her own relationship with this place. It was her dream of her special place. Embodiment of place can take shape in many different ways, and of course one of the key ways when you're talking about arts-based pedagogies is through drama. So movement, drama, play. When we perform the other than human world, what do we know about it and how do we interact with it as a result? I'd suggest that the experience of moving a butterfly with young children is very different to that of moving an eagle or a wombat walking through the bush. So representation of place through performative relationships, thinking of Karen Barad's idea of performative relationships, where we are not reliant on the way we language the natural world, but we are taking bodily action in order to experience it, can have a very profound effect on children, on the way we conceptualise and the way we interact with matter. There's a knowing that this comes from this kind of movement that makes one think differently about your interaction with the natural world, whether it's the breeze on your skin, whether it's a grasshopper that you suddenly find on your finger, whether it's watching a snake slither through the grass. A different appreciation, a different sense of fascination, a different sense of awe and wonder can come from this. Inspiration for movement can come from many different places. This was an image in a paddock just outside my kindergarten, and this lovely movement of the grass with the wind created a simple little song that I'm going to sing, I think. It's very simple. Shish whisper the prancer, the grassy top dancer, whirls and swirls and flows. Gentle blow breeze high in the trees informs the birds all know. Then rush roar is loud as he brings in the cloud. He comes and then he goes. Simple little things that you can put into song, into verse, into movement. There it is. The rhythms and the sounds become refined and they result in a new way of knowing. When you watch certain animals move, the rhythms of their movement, the nuances of their movement can be put into song, can be put into movement. Eurythmy. This is a picture of what I was doing before. Eurythmy is, in a nutshell, visible speech through movement. And one of the things it reminds me of, looking at it now, and I haven't been a eurythmy student for many, many years, and reading Karen Barad, it's a stripping back of language to the essence of sound and touching and placing this sound on the air. And Barad talks about touching theory and theorising touch and the ephemeral notion of touch, and how that touch is not really real, that what we're looking at is the series of electrons that are actually repulsed, and that's that repulsive force that we feel, but we're not actually touching anything. So this idea that we can put speech on the air and it can actually have a force and create movement in the air is quite wonderful. And I love this child, you know, the sensitivity in her hands. It's just beautiful. Content for drama and play. White's quote, we need to allow children to develop their biophilia, their love for the earth, before we ask them to save it. It's a very romantic notion, but nonetheless a powerful one. One of the things we used to do as teachers is put on plays for the children, and that's me being the green earth mother in the photo on the left, and in the photo below on the right hand side that's kindergarten children moving, I can't remember what, it's probably 25 years ago, but you know, you can see the sensitivity and the engagement in their movement. Being the non-human. This is taken in a preschool as part of during my PhD research. These children are being silk moths, and you can see this little boy holding his hands, fluttering like a silk moth that's just come out of its cocoon, and the seriousness with which he does that. They actually had silk moths in the preschool at the time, but he's so totally there, he's becoming the silk moth. The magic of elemental interplay. This is from one of my children's books, and the text that goes with this image is this. In the morning, and it's the sun dancer speaking, and he's explaining to the drip droplets why they need to get out of the way, because there are so many things that need to be done that are a sun dancer's business. In the morning I'll shine and play with the mist, and my friend Merle Swirl, mist dancer, will silently lift and swirl around me on her way to the sky, to wait for the moonbeams with the coming of night. So I'm not trying to romanticise nature, but I'm trying to put into words, into movement, the processes that occur in the natural world. Now, there are many ways that we can work with children with the natural world, and I'm going to skip through this because I want to finish with a song. But form and proportion, the Fibonacci series, the golden mean, projective geometry, this is the stuff of mathematics in primary school and in high school. For younger children, the form in the natural world, again, contains the same basic concepts that can be elucidated perhaps more simply, but just as powerfully. The nature of water. When we look at the elements, I'm going to skip through these really quickly, but the nature of water and the nature of the elements is something that can create a very strong connection with the natural world and a strong sense of understanding. Colour. Colour and form can generate a sense of wonder. Our knowledge of our environment is often known through colour and form. One of the reasons that people often like going to Canberra is because of the delineation of the seasons through colour. The colour wheel, etc. I'm going to have to skip through these. Music and sound, and I'm about to finish here. Spoken vowels in a gas stream, the effects of sounds on... Oh, I can't talk about that, I haven't got time. These images, that's an organ, a note increasing in volume. These are the vowels being spoken at the bottom, and the effect that they have on the air. These are experiments done by Theodore Schwenk in his beautiful book, Sensitive Chaos. And again, Earth's breath. What does this do? What impact do our sounds have on the dynamics of air movement? What reciprocal interactions occur in the air and between the human and non-human through our speech, through our movement, and through music? I'm going to finish with a song, and this song came from a masterclass I did with some visiting educadoras and mentors from Chile, from northwestern Chile and Antofagasta. This is a picture of the Camanchaca, which is formed by the Humboldt current, which is a cold air current that comes out of the northeast Pacific and creates this amazing blanket of fog. But sadly, it's a desert area. It hardly rains. So it's a tease, you know, it's constantly frustrating the locals. So the song I'm going to sing you contains a little bit of that as well. Sorry about the setup time. I haven't played this for a very long time, so forgive me. Camanchaca whispers rolling from the sea, hugging the range and the coastal plain. Camanchaca whispers in the mountains lee. They promise but give little rain. Talandia gather in the desert plain to water their green cacti leaves. They catch the Camanchaca and turn it to rain, lest it be caught by the breeze. Camanchaca whispers rolling from the sea, hugging the range and the coastal plain. Camanchaca whispers in the mountains lee. They promise but give little rain. The Camanchaca whispers whisper